Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this month's Michigan Man Extra. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Today we have part one of an interview with one of the greatest running backs to ever play in the Big House. He was a three-time All-Big Ten selection and three-time All-American. Every Michigan fan, regardless of age, has heard of Billy Taylor. I was a kid during his playing days, but remember well his mix of speed and power. He was a great back on some great teams. You younger listeners have, I'm sure, heard Bob Ufer's call of Billy Taylor's famous game-winning touchdown against Ohio State in the 1971 game. With under 2 minutes left and trailing the Buckeyes 7-3, Billy broke off a 21-yard touchdown run that will live in infamy. It was his last carry in Michigan Stadium. I thought NFL stardom was up next, as did most Michigan fans and college football observers, but that never happened. Instead, a series of events in the months following his last appearance for Michigan led Billy down a path of self-destruction. His walk on the dark side lasted more than 25 years. But Billy knew at some point he would have to get back up and take control of his life. He did. His story is one of great athletic achievement, substance abuse, depression, and finally, recovery and redemption. We are honored to be joined this week by the great Dr. Billy Taylor. This is part one of our chat. We will have part two for you on our extra in June, here on the Michigan Man, on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Here with us on our Michigan Man Extra for the month of May, and we've had him on before. It's been a couple of years now. Michigan great, Dr. Billy Taylor. Dr. Taylor, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure. You know, I'm true blue. If someone say cut me, I'm gonna bleed maize and blue. So I'm just happy to be remembered. You know, it's been so long since I played, but I'm honored and humbled about just having had the opportunity to play for the Maize and Blue and run out of that tunnel in the winged helmet.
Well, I thought it was important, Dr. Taylor. Of course, a lot of our listeners, the audience is sort of split between the very young Michigan fans and then some of we older Michigan fans who, of course, remember you very well. But I think it's important from a historical perspective. A lot of our listeners are young listeners to go back and realize what great players and what great accomplishments we've had through the years at Michigan. And not only that, but a great story. So I wanted our listeners to hear your story, and we don't have time for all of it, but let's start back in the early days just to bring a lot of our listeners up to speed, Dr. Taylor, who might not know your history. I mean, at Michigan, you were, of course, 3 times All-Big Ten, 3-time All-American, one of the greatest running backs to ever play for our Wolverines. So if you could, Dr. Taylor, tell our listeners a bit about where life started for you and how the road led to Ann Arbor.
Oh, wow. Going way, way back. I was born by midwife. A lot of people don't know that. You know, so were all my other brothers and sisters on my grandmother's couch in a small town called Hoxie, Arkansas. But that's because my dad worked railroad, and he was not around. Our home was in Memphis, Tennessee. And so after a few months, as I'm told by my mom, she went back home and to Memphis. And unfortunately, at age 5, my dad passed. Mm-hmm. And we left Memphis and moved to Barberton, Ohio, where most people listening, even the young ones, they do a lot of research. They know that Bo Schembechler is also from Barberton, Ohio. So, you know, it's just, you know, really our life is almost like a design of sorts by some greater higher power, mm-hmm. you know, because how ironic is it that born, living in Memphis, went to Arkansas to be born, then from there to Barberton, Ohio, of all places, you know, and Bo and a few other people, and maybe they may want to add my name to the list, put Barberton, Ohio on the map, you know, but we're both from Barberton, and I had the pleasure to meet Bo when I was about 9 or 10 years old, and we were at a bank. I was with my mom, and this guy walks in Barberton. I think it was the First National Bank or whatever, but everybody's making a big fuss out of this guy, and I was like to Mom, I said, "Who is that?" And she wasn't sure, but in my mind, as a 9-year-old little black kid, I said, it looked like just another white guy, but as it turned out, that was Bo Schembechler, and he had, coached and under Woody, but everybody in Barberton knew him, and that was our first meeting, and relating to what I was saying about life kind of being a design, I had no idea that another 10 years later, I would be at Michigan playing for Bo. And I don't think he had any idea at that time, because I think he was still at Miami of Ohio, or maybe as an undergrad coaching assistant under Woody Hayes at Ohio State. But, fast forwarding, I eventually came to Michigan, and I'm dating myself because Bo came the following year. I came in 68 and came in 69. But, who knows life's itinerary? How would anyone have guessed back in those days at that time that I would wind up at Michigan, Bo would wind up at Michigan, and me playing for him?
Absolutely.
I think it's more than a coincidence, and that's my explanation of the design.
Well, Dr. Taylor, you played, when you got to the University of Michigan, you played on some great teams that I remember so well. You were surrounded by just a ton of talent during your Michigan career. Talk about some of your favorite memories and some of the other players to remind Michigan fans how many great players were on those teams with you.
Yeah, Bo inherited, a team that was ready to go, perhaps he brought a different type of leadership, but the talent was already at Michigan when Bo came, and Bo unselfishly, acknowledged that, because we came to Michigan under Bo Schembechler. And when I say we, well, the guys already there were people like Dan Deerdorf, Jim Mandich, Don Moorhead, a host of other guys, but my class came in 68 under Bump Elliott. We came to Michigan to play for Bump. Mm-hmm. We didn't like Bo, and I can share that a little bit later because the way he recruited. I went down to Miami, and this man was, we just thought he was nuts. And myself, but getting back to the group that came in 68 under Bump Elliott were myself, Reggie McKenzie, Tom Darden, Mike Oldham, Butch Carpenter, Glenn Dowdy, just to name a few. And there were other guys too. Bruce Elliott was there. Paul Seymour came in. These guys, we were all freshmen, so we never had any idea that we were going to be playing for a guy named Bo Schembechler. Like I say, this is all just part of the design, and the reason I didn't want to play for Bo because I didn't like him. Most of the people that he recruited did not like Bo Schembechler. They just, he was rough, he was tough, he was boisterous, he was pushy, he was all of that, But and as a young kid, you're 18 years old. Well, go back when I came to Michigan, he was a head coach in Miami of Ohio and recruited me, and myself and Tom Darden out of Sandusky, Ohio. We eventually became roommates when we got to Michigan, but we were in Miami on a recruiting trip at the same time, and we had met on a previous trip somewhere. I had 50-some offers, and Tom had a whole lot of them, and there's the recruiting circuit. But anyway, we landed at Miami University, and Bo, Gary Moeller, couple of the other coaches that were on the staff. They all met us. Coach Stobar, Coach Hanlon. They met us at the airport, brought us in, and it was a typical recruiting trip. Meet and talk with the coaches, dinner, and we went out that night and hung with some of the at Miami of Ohio, some of the players, and we went to a party. I wasn't used to being up till 11, 12 o'clock. I was still in high school, so we got back late and got to bed, and we were staying in the dorm, and about 6 a.m., Bo Schembechler, there was a knock on the door, boom, 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 and I opened the door, and it's Bo Schembechler standing there asking, "Are you guys ready to work out?" And I looked over at Tom Darden. He shrugged his shoulders, and we didn't know what was happening. Was he for real? And he was. He said downstairs in 15 minutes, and I was in shock. So we went down, tennis shoes, shorts, T-shirts, and this man had all of the recruits working out with his players. We were lifting weights. They were charting it. We were doing sit-ups, push-ups. We had to run sprints for time, and it was just crazy. And at the during this workout, I would pass Tom Darden. He would look at me, and I was like, "This man is crazy. There's no way in the world I'm coming and play football for him." And he would squeeze your arms. "You're soft, How did you run all those touchdowns in high school?" It was the worst recruiting weekend I'd ever been on. So fast forwarding, Tom and I went on about our business, and Coach Schembechler would call the house, and we had trouble pronouncing his name, but my mom would say, "Coach Shimmy Yecker," or somebody is on the phone. I said, "Mama, tell him I'm not home. I don't want to talk to this man." So Coach Hanlon called. I tell them the same thing. If they're from Miami, they're on the coaching staff, I do not want to talk to them, especially that Schembechler coach, But how do you know? Eventually, fast forwarding, we come to Michigan. We play freshman football. For those younger people listening, Michigan actually had a freshman football team. In 68. I'm dating myself. I always say I'm 39 and holding, but I got a jacket that old, Mike. But we had our freshman season, and we were looking forward to playing in 69 with Michigan under Coach Bump Elliott, but went home to Christmas break in December of 68. And the Akron Beacon Journal on the front page, I always got up in the morning to look at the sports and read the funny papers. Younger crowd, they don't know anything about that, right, Mike?
No, they do not.
But on the front page was Bo Schembechler, named head coach, University of Michigan. I almost died, man. I couldn't believe it. I had to sit down, and I called Tom Darden, and he said, "BT, it's true, man." I said, "No, this got to be a joke." He said, "No, it's true. Bo Schembechler is going to be our head coach." We hated it. We were talking about transferring to another school and everything.
Well, it's funny, Dr. Taylor's one of the players from your era, and I can't remember who it was, mentioned to Mitch Albom in his book on Bo that recruits, young athletes, sort of had a three-stage relationship with Bo. It was when you came in, you hated him in the beginning, and then you grudgingly understood what he was all about, and in that third stage, you loved him.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Turns out to be the greatest thing that ever happened. And that's what I get back about life and this design. There's some design to it. I read an anecdote once that this life must be an experience, an experiment, because if it was a real life, it would come with some instructions, But I never would have made that decision. If wherever Bo Schembechler was coaching, I definitely was not going to go there. And at that time, he was down in Miami of Ohio. We thought he was crazy. We thought he was a nut. And really, we weren't too far off, But we just didn't understand, his thinking and his methods and how he, went about preparing a team to be successful. But once again, it was happenstance in a sense that I didn't plan to I did plan to come to Michigan. I love Bump Elliott, but I did not plan to play for Bo Schembechler. That was something totally out of my control.
Well, as we all know by now, it had a happy ending as far as your Michigan career. It's just great teams. One moment I just wanted to ask you about, Dr. Taylor. We've talked about this before, but as a young man, a kid listening to the Ohio State game in 1971, as we've talked about, listening to you on the radio and then having the television on, it's just a moment that I'll never forget as a young Michigan fan. It's part of the opening for this show during football season. Leads into our first segment, that incredible late game run with just under 2 minutes left, trailing Ohio State 7-3. It was the run that we all remember that had Mr. Ufer seeing maize and blue spots in front of his eyes up in the booth. And I'm sure you remember that like it happened yesterday, Dr. Taylor.
Oh, well, absolutely. The touchdown, Billy Taylor, Taylor. Yeah. Even today, it still pumps me up when I hear that. It was my greatest individual moment in sports. I think the greatest team victory in college. I played some in the NFL, but with injuries, not a lot. But I talked to a lot of former teammates, and their greatest times were at the University of Michigan. Many went on to play in the NFL and win millions of dollars, but you ask them about the greatest game, and that would be Michigan-Ohio State 1969. That was the greatest game that I played in, and what you were referring to in 71, the winning touchdown to beat Ohio State and Bob Ufer's touchdown, Billy Taylor. That was my greatest personal individual moment in sports because, largest crowd ever. I'm a senior, and that gave us 11-0, a perfect season, a trip to the Rose Bowl, a Big Ten championship first, a trip to the Rose Bowl, and we rose to 2 or 3 in the national polls, and it was my last time that I carried the ball in Michigan Stadium. We went on to lose another Rose Bowl. That's a thorn in the side, but that season finished with undefeated for over 40 years since Michigan had been undefeated, and it was the largest crowd ever assembled, all of that, and so individually that was my greatest moment. But playing with my teammates in that 1969 game, and I'm just a sophomore, and Jim Mandich, God bless him, he's no longer with us. Dan Deerdorf is still with us, and some of those seniors on that team, and then all of we freshmen that were now sophomores that were playing. And what made it so big, that initially was the largest crowd ever assembled in 69, the 69 Michigan-Ohio State game. But Ohio State was number one in the country, as you may recall, for 2 or 3 consecutive years, and they had been undefeated for at least 2 years, and they were so proud and cocky. I remember an interview that we saw, of course, after the game. Woody was, someone was asking him, basically, what if they lose? He said, well, we're not, we're going to play the game and we'll accept the accolades afterwards, or something like that. He was saying. And they were, I think it was Sports Illustrated said it was the greatest college team ever assembled, and all of that. And disheartening to us, one of the local papers, I don't know if it was the Free Press or the News or Ann Arbor News, I'm not sure, but somewhere in print it had Michigan has 2 chances of winning Saturday against the Buckeyes, slim and none. And another paper said we should just save ourselves to embarrassment, Mike, and forfeit the game. Don't even show up. Well, Bo Schembechler, the Michigan coaching staff, we players, we thought that was a bunch of garbage. Got to be careful my choice of words here. But I do recall before that game started, Bo, we went out for pregame, and then we came back in the locker room before we were to take the field to go out and meet these Buckeyes. Bo flipped his hat backwards, and he said, man, he held the newspaper up, and he read what I just shared with you. They say we had 2 chances to win and Slim and none, and he said, Bull, and you can figure out the rest of it. And he said, we've had a great week of practice. We've had a great season, and let's go out there and kick their, stop. And he hit the chalkboard. We had chalkboards in those days, and it flipped over. And I'm telling you, to get out of the locker room on that day, before we played Ohio State in '69, you had to be a man pumped up 10 times, because we were punching and pushing, and the door is only so wide, and here you got all these players in shoulder pads, but we couldn't wait and run into the tunnel. Didn't feel our feet hitting the ground, and the crowd was stomping and yelling, and you couldn't hear anything. It was almost like slow motion. I mean, the adrenaline level was so high. But we went out and we played that unbeatable team, as the media had said, and 24-12 at halftime. When the final whistle blew, it was 24-12 Michigan.
Incredible memories for all of us that were actually there or listening or watching the game. Great games that you just referenced, and such a great career. And I think all of us Michigan fans, young and old, that watched you play, Dr. Taylor, were certain that after those incredible Michigan days, you were going to move on to be an NFL star. But days after the Rose Bowl, which was that 13-12 loss to Stanford, your life was changed forever on January 4th of 1972.
Absolutely.
Talk about that day and really a series of events in that year that started a downward spiral in your life.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you, I'll go back a little before that. When I was in middle school, I had 3 primary goals. Coaches always have to set goals. One was to, play college football and go into the NFL afterwards. I wanted to get a doctorate degree one day like Dr. Martin Luther King. And, and thirdly, after a successful NFL career, college career, I want to play in the NFL and be financially able to build my mom a home and take care of her, because she has struggled so much. I'm the youngest of 7, and we didn't have much at all growing up, but we had a lot of love, So those were my 3 goals, a college degree, NFL, and business, and take care of my mom. So January 1st, second Rose Bowl, 72. On January 4th, my mom suddenly dies of a heart attack. And this knocked me down. I have a drug treatment facility. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. It's called Get Back Up. The title of my autobiography is Get Back Up, the Billy Taylor story. But I was knocked down and in life, and I found in those years after Michigan that life will knock you down. It knocks us all down at one time or another, physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially, you name it. We get knocked down, but I learned years later, it's imperative that you get back up. But January 4th, I'm a young man of 21 years old. I lose my everything. My mom, my dad passed when I was 5 years old. And my mom she held the family together. She took care of us. She did without many, many things just to provide for the children. And I never forgot that. That's why I wanted to take care of her, after I graduated from college. But so that dream, that goal was taken away on January 4th of 72. And for the first time, I was brought up, apple juice, milk, bacon, eggs, and fruits, and working out and playing sports and going to school. But everything changed on January 4th when my mom passed. I no longer cared about my goals. I no longer cared about the NFL. I no longer cared about pretty much anything. And I started to drink for the first time just to ease the pain. And I was suffering from depression. And those listening, if you're going through something emotional, psychological, especially depression, talk to somebody, not just anybody, but you got to check the source. But I started drinking and getting high just to ease the pain because I was hurting inside so much, and this is something that I had never done, and almost flunked out of school. I've lost my mom. That was my everything. I'm drafted 5th round, 5th pick by Atlanta. I no longer cared about sports or virtually anything, but I tried to come out of it, Mike. And after a few months, say in March or April or whatever, and I said, I got to get myself together. My mom wouldn't want me living like this. And then in June, my uncle shot and killed my aunt and killed himself. And my dad, as I mentioned, passed when I was 5. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have a mom. My uncle was like a father figure. He and my aunt, they're gone 4 or 5 months after my mom. So this downward spiral has begun, drinking and drugging just to deal with the pain. And once again, I tried to get back up, if I may, and continue with life in a positive way. And I went away to camp and with Atlanta, and the first preseason game against San Diego, we were out in California. I banged up my knee. I'm depressed again. I'm sent home, and I was dating a young lady, and I felt like everybody that I cared about was gone. I had lost the closest people in my life, so I was thinking, maybe I should just get married and settle down, forget about sports. And the young lady, she was brutally stabbed to death, and that's September. So I had those 3 tragedies that started a downward spiral, all in 9 months. January, mom, uncle and aunt. In June, September, the girl that I was dating. So, and I'm 21 years old. I couldn't handle it, so I turned to substances. And I bounced around the NFL 2 or 3 years, and with injuries, and then just mentally not being in a good place, I just gave up on that dream. And I think the only reason I went to training camp was to earn some money, but I had nothing else going on, But those things just boom, 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 couldn't handle it. So I'll say to the listening audiences, if you get you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, you're going through a lot of psychological, emotional pain, get some help. Talk to somebody. I know it's not easy to do, and there were people in my life that I could have talked to. I could have talked to Bo. I could have talked to some of the other coaches or a minister that I knew growing up, but I turned away from everybody that I knew, and it almost killed me. Through the grace of God, I'm doing very well today. Getting younger. I don't say getting older, but I'm in good health, and I wake up in my right mind, Mike, at least for the most part. I might be a little crazy, but and I realize that God is good, but I was able to come through that, not on my own doing, but just by the grace of God, and I let people know I'm a teacher, not a preacher, but I have strong faith and trust in God. But those are the things at such a young age that just knocked me down. And eventually I did get back up. I've learned to do that more rapidly, over the years. But as a very young person, it was some challenges that I just was not ready to deal with, and I'm just grateful that I was able to come out on the other end.
Dr. Taylor and I recorded for well over an hour, so I decided to make his interview a two-part release. We will bring you part 2 with Dr. Taylor on our June Extra. I'll give you a heads up on Facebook and Twitter when it publishes. On Quick Hits today, the number 17 ranked University of Michigan softball team, 43-11 on the year, will head to Lexington, Kentucky to kick off NCAA tournament play this weekend, Friday through Sunday, at the University of Kentucky's John Kropp Stadium. The Wolverines will open play against Notre Dame at noon on Friday. You can see that live on ESPN2. Michigan is making its 26th NCAA tournament appearance and has earned a spot in the NCAA tournament every season since 1995. It is just the 6th time in program history that U of M will play a regional round on the road. The Wolverines are 81-15 all-time in the NCAA regional round and have won 18 regional titles. The winner of the Lexington Regional will move on to a Super Regional against the winner of the regional being hosted by Oregon in Eugene. That regional consists of number 1 overall seed Oregon, BYU, Drake, and Albany. The Wolverines will look to bounce back after suffering an early exit from the Big Ten tournament, where they fell to in-state rival Michigan State 7-0 in the quarterfinal round. Michigan owns a 4-4 record after losses this season and has not lost more than 2 games in a row. Megan Bobian, freshman sensation, All-Big Ten Pitcher of the Year, will be in the circle against Notre Dame on Friday. Baseball will wrap up the regular season this weekend with a Big Ten Conference Series at Purdue in West Lafayette. The weekend series will begin at 6 p.m. today and will continue on Friday. The finale of the 2018 regular season is set for this Saturday at 1 p.m. Fans can watch both the Friday and Saturday contests live on the Big Ten Network. The Wolverines, 32-16 overall, 15-5 in the Big Ten, currently sit in second place in the conference, while the Boilermakers are in third place. Michigan is just 1 game out of first place behind Minnesota, while Purdue is 2 games ahead of Ohio State and Illinois. Following the weekend series at Purdue, the Wolverines will head to Omaha, Nebraska for the Big Ten Conference Tournament. Michigan has advanced to the Big Ten Tournament each of the 6 seasons of head coach Eric Bakich's tenure with the program. Remember, our free show app is available from the iTunes and Google Play stores. You can also hear us on TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, and Wolverine Sports Radio. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a minute to rate or review the program. Thank you in advance. Once again, thank you to the great Dr. Billy Taylor for sharing his story with us. For more information on his important mission and work with Get Back Up, just visit his site at www.getbackup.com. You can also listen to Dr. Taylor Saturday mornings on WADL Detroit at 9:10 on your AM radio dial. He starts at 6 a.m. Or you can stream the show from www.wadl.com. Part 2 of our interview can be heard on our Michigan Man Extra in June. Next week, though, it's time for another recruiting update with Steve Lorenz from 24/7 Sports on our regular day, so make sure you join us for that. That will do it for another edition of the Michigan Man. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!